Here's something interesting that you may never have thought about and that you might not had realized is very telling and very explanatory of modern female nature, or just female nature in general. Well, if you've been in the red pill community for any amount of time, you're gonna get a good handle on what female nature is. And when you put on the red pill scope and the red pill glasses, you're able to see things for the way they really are. And sometimes you get epiphanies. And that's why that is, and that's why that happened, and this is why this girl rejected me, and this is why this relationship didn't work out, and this is why this is why that. So, in that vein, on such a concept, tonight I got hit with an epiphany of the movie Forest Gump, right? And you know, in the red pill community, we kind of realized that Jenny was a cunt. Jenny was a selfish, solipsistic, loose, no morals kind of girl. And many people would point to the fact and say that, oh, well, she had an abusive childhood, and, you know, that's why she was so wanton and loose and, you know, drugged out, promiscuous and all this. But I think I think there's some merit there. I think there's some truth in that. But I don't think that fully really sums up Jenny. I think that, and I don't know if the directors or the writers or whatever did this, you know, of the movie itself. I don't know who they are. All I know is Tom Hanks and, you know, Robin Wright Penn or whatever starred in it. So, but I don't know if they realized, if they really did this on purpose. But most people don't look at Forrest Gump this way. They look at Forrest Gump like, okay, it's all about this guy, this retarded guy, or, you know, mentally disabled guy, Forrest Gump, right? And he has this amazing life, and it's so amazing because he does all this great stuff, and it's like a representative of the 20th century and all the great things that happen and all the possibilities and all the woo-woo, right? And it's all encapsulated in this guy, Forrest Gump, right? That's how most people think of the movie. But not many people think and realize that, well, first of all, it's a love story. Sorry to say, if you follow the plot line, Jenny is a main character throughout the movie, and she sort of, I wouldn't say shapes his life, but she kind of anchors the film, right? And she sort of is a main plot character that comes in at key times that sort of, you know, defines his life. The fact that he's always loved her, and the fact that he could go do these amazing things and always come back and she's there, always meet her somewhere, right? It just keeps happening throughout the whole movie. So after a while you realize, wait a minute, this movie is not just about Forrest Gump. This movie is about the love between Jenny and Forrest Gump. And it's a lot about Jenny as well. It really is. Although she's obviously not the main character. So, but here's the thing. And and again, I don't know if the directors or writers meant to do this, but Jenny is a great representative of modern women. The way that she, I mean, really, really good. Like, somebody should really break this down. I'm going to do a little bit of it, but, you know, not conclusive. But maybe Mr. Rollo Tomasi could do a better job than I could. But her behavior and the way that she acts throughout the whole movie, and her motivations and her just her, you know, the things that she does is perfect. I mean, and yes, I will say this. Yes, she's an example of a toxic woman. She is a very toxic woman. And if you know toxic women, she's that to a T. She's perfect toxic woman, right? But also from a red pill perspective, when you put on the red pill glasses, okay, she's a great representative of female nature, right? She's a really good representative of female nature. You know, what do women want? It's just like that song, girls just want to have fun, blah, 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 right? Girls just want excitement. They want fun for a while, up until time to grow up. Had a kid. Now I want to settle down, or it's time for me to settle down and I want a kid, right? No one knows when that happens. Usually, from my experience, it happens around 26, 27, 28, right around that time it happens. And it might be a couple years before, it might be a couple years later, but usually it's not before 24, 25, okay? Usually women don't want it because they're having fun. They just want to have fun. Now, the movie Forrest Gump is a little bit longer because I don't think Ginny and Forrest hooked up when married or what. Actually, I think they finally did marry at the very end. I think he was probably 40 or at least 35. He wasn't known because he did all this other stuff. He ran a shrimp boat. He went running across the country. He did all this other stuff. While what was Jenny doing? She was out doing drugs. She was out getting fucked. She was out chasing bad boys, right? So if you think about it, that's a good representative of what a lot of women are doing. I won't say all, I won't say all because there's always exceptions, girls, and they might not be doing it in that exact fashion. They might not be chasing drugs. They might be chasing excitement in other ways. They might not be chasing, bad boys, these kind of bad boys, but they might be chasing these kind of guys. They might, right? So it's some variation therein, right? She doesn't want to get settled down until she's done having her fun, until she's done having her excitement. Right, this is the classic alpha fucks, beta bucks variation, right? The guys that she's fucking might not be total alphas. They might be just bad boys. They might be political Antifa guys. They might be, they might be drug dealers. They might be in a band. They might be this. They might be that. Like, she wants a guy who's got something exciting going on in the initial stages of her dating life. But later on, she wants the Forrest Gump. Why? Because Forrest Gump represents the guy who's just too dumb and nice to be a bad boy. He couldn't do it for her when she was younger. But now that she wants to settle down, now that she wants a kid, now she's ready for Forrest Gump. Right? So this is female nature. And like I said, I don't know if the writers did that on purpose, but man, did they do a good job of that. I really don't think they probably didn't do it on purpose. Maybe they did. I don't know. But this is just a perfect example. But this movie, again, it's about a love story between Forrest and Ginny. But it's a fucked up love story, right? And it's such a weird movie because most people think that this movie is like this real cool movie about Forrest. Like, it's such a heartwarming movie. Now, I will say it has a lot of elements of like some of the great things that, America went through in the 20th century, right? Like the Vietnam War, like, I can't say that word, international sports, right? With his ping pong championship. And then the concept of him finding the American dream with his shrimp boat business, and then him getting rich, which is really the American dream, starting a business and getting rich, right? That's the quintessential concept of the American dream. And then him trying to settle down, but it not really working, because Ginny's a Rolling Stone, right? Ginny's out there doing cocaine and all kinds of crazy stuff. Now, of course, there's some controversy at the end. A lot of people say she got AIDS, right? But the story never really says that. It just says she's dying and it could have been cancer. Okay, so could have been AIDS, could have been cancer, but the fact that the baby was healthy and she says the baby's healthy. I think she was saying the baby's healthy, like he's not mentally ill like Forrest, even though Forrest knew he was kind of mentally ill, which is a sad thing. I actually had a friend growing up who was, Forrest wasn't mentally ill, but he was mentally handicapped. I actually had a friend growing up who was mentally handicapped, unfortunately, but he was cognizant enough, smart enough to know that he was mentally handicapped. And that's a sad thing, because it's like you're almost normal, but there's something just a little off about you. And that's the reason I could be his friend, because he was cool. Like he was a nice kid, and he was cool, and like he was fun, but he was just slow. He was a little slow. He really was. And it was an interesting thing being his friend growing up. It really was. And he was a good kid. He had a good heart, and he really liked me. And I miss him. I still talk to his family sometimes, still talk to him sometimes. But that's a weird thing, because, and Forrest kind of, you have to wonder, did Forrest feel the type of feelings that we feel in the Red Pill community? Because he was gifted, right? He was a savant, right, at certain things, but he was also kind of, he wasn't normal, in other ways. So it's like, did he realize that Ginny was a hoe? Did he realize that Ginny broke his heart? Did he realize that Ginny, was a modern female? Would Forrest have been MGTOW? No, Probably not, because he was too nice. He just loved her with this amazing, selfless love that she could do anything, literally ignore the guy for 25 years, and then finally come back into his life, and he always loved her. And I don't think she ever really, she loved Forrest like a friend. But women can't love a man like that. They can love him like a friend. They can have this kind of, platonic kind of love for him, but they can't love a man passionately as a woman loves a man. They can't love a man like that because he doesn't have those ingredients. He doesn't have those ingredients that women want. He doesn't have, this is the problem with nice guys. They don't have those ingredients. They don't have the things that makes women wet. They're not assertive. They're not jokey. They're not a rebel. They don't play by their own rules. They play within. This is the problem with being a nice guy. You play within the rules of society. You don't want to offend anybody. You're not assertive, right? These are characters that dry women up. So, you do have to factor in the fact that Jenny was abused. You do, and it does matter, and it does play. Maybe if she wasn't abused, she wouldn't have been as hardcore as she was. But whether she was abused or not, you can't just say, "Oh, well, all her behavior was because she was abused." No, you have a choice. I know, people who went through a lot of pain when they were young, and they still fought and overcame a lot of it because everybody has a choice. Every day we got 24 hours of choice, right? And women they love to blame shift. They love to say, "Oh, I did all this because men. I did all this because men do it too. I did all this because..." Women love to do that because they don't want to take responsibility. One of the biggest faults of females today, of women in our day and age today, is that they don't take accountability and responsibility for their own behavior. They don't take agency. They're just not mature like that. And the reason why I think so is because, first of all, a female really, if you really think about it, women historically and just biologically, and they really don't have to, in a way, because the men are the one, unfortunately, and of course in the red pill community we have a problem with this, right? Men are the ones who have to put their balls on the table, right? Men are the ones who have to, take the risks. Men are the ones who have to, earn, or else we're nothing. Men are the ones who have to, right? You get what I'm saying. Women really don't have to. All they have to do is be responsible for kids. All they really have to do is bear children. All they really have to do is give sex to men, right? And this is what they do. Women don't take responsibility, and society, because of gynocentrism, gives them a pass, right? So Jenny never said, "I'm sorry" to Forrest Gump, because what does she have to say she's sorry for? Because she really didn't love him. So she was kind of being true to herself, and that she wanted to be a hoe, and she thought, now, was that life fulfilling for her in the end? No. Was that life, was she happy in that life? Well, she became a drug addict. I mean, she was letting abusive men have their way with her. Like, can you really be happy? I don't think so. But she continued to do that. Now, that could have been because of the abuse, right? But again, it's a representative of females today, right? She could have been trying to find her daddy who was abusive, which is why she was chasing after the wrong type of guys. But even if a woman's not chasing after the wrong type of guys, she still doesn't want Forrest Gump. She still doesn't want, I mean, the type of guy the guy might not be abusive, right? But he's still going to have those ingredients and characteristics that are going to turn a woman on, right? And Forrest is not it. They don't want docile in their early years. They don't want nice guy provider in their early years, right? In the early years of dating, they want the guy who's going to turn them on. They want the excitement. They want the good sex, right? They want their cake and eat it too. He's just not hot. That's not hot. What Forrest is not hot. He dresses like, he dresses every day like he's going to church. He dresses very conservative, very, very, like tucks all his shirts in, that's not hot to a woman, right? So in a sense, you could say that this is female nature on the one hand. On the other hand, you could say Jenny is mean and she's selfish, right? She's mean and she's selfish in the sense that and it could be because of their friendship, but she kind of doesn't just tell Forrest the truth. Hey, Forrest, I don't like you, right? I know you love me, and maybe and you could argue and say, well, she's too caught up in her own thing, and maybe she just likes being friends with Forrest. But I would say a good friend is going to be like, hey, you know what? I know you have feelings for me, and I'm sorry, but I'm not that into you. I'm not into it. Like I'm not interested in you that way. I like you as a friend. And many guys will be like, oh, you're in the friend zone. And it's possible that eventually that from the friend zone, a woman can develop feelings. It's possible that happens. It's not but obviously guys, I mean, it depends on your motives. If you want to be friends with her and you still have feelings for her, it's up to you. And you say, well, I still want that friendship, even though I have feelings for her, I can deal with it. Okay. But most of the time, we in the red pill community advise guys, don't be in the friend zone. Like if you want to have sex with her, if you want to date her, and yet she just puts you in the friend zone and she just wants to be friends with you, you probably should just move on, because you're going to be wasting a lot of time while she's pumping in, she's getting pumped and dumped by some other guys. Or it depends on your strategy. And I'm not saying it can't work. Some guys actually do stay in the friend zone and continue to try to fuck the girl until eventually she gives in. When I was younger, I was totally against that. When I was younger, because I had been put in the friend zone. I was like, no, I'm not going to be put in the friend zone. It was part of my bad boyness. And it worked for me at the time, because girls were like, well, obviously this guy's out for sex. He's not going to be put in the friend zone. All right, I'll give him sex because maybe that makes him a high value guy, right? Because a lot of guys would be like, oh, okay. And they'll simp for her. And they'll be like, okay, I'll be in the friend zone. I'll be in the friend zone. Like maybe someday she'll give me sex. And oh, thank you for letting me be in your friend zone. It's like, it depends. It depends on what kind of friend zone you're in. It depends on the girl. Right. But there can come a time when, on the one hand, like for a long time, she's like, I'm just not into you. I'm not feeling it. And a lot of times if a girl's not feeling it, she'll never feel it. If she views you one way, a lot of times she'll never view you any other way. If she views you as a beta, she views you as a nice guy, she may never ever view you in any other light. But it's possible, and it can change. There can be a time where if you get your game right and you suggest sex in a certain way, or you continue to go for sex, and she's cool, and she's not like ending the friendship because of that, it's possible that she'll give in sometime. That can happen. I know guys who've used that as a strategy and it's worked for them. It just depends on it depends on what you want to do. It depends on the dynamic. But obviously Forrest wasn't trying to do that. Like, he loved her and he wanted to love her. And of course, what I said a second ago about getting out of the friend zone is that's how you got to deal with modern women today, because modern women today are all about sex. Like, if you're not having sex with her on the first date, she's probably not even going to date you. Like, you need to have sex with her on the first date. Women are not how they used to be, or maybe they were never like that. I don't know, but they're not like, oh, you got to take me out on a bunch of dates, and then maybe I'll get into a relationship with him. Maybe someday we'll have sex. Like, no, it's first date sex, or else she's probably never even going to consider dating you. Like, that's how it is in 2020. If you don't know that, you need to know that soon. So Forrest wasn't going to do that. He wanted the traditional. He had a pure love. Forrest's love for her was true love. Forrest's love for her was the atypical, or I shouldn't say atypical, that's not the right word. Forrest Gump's love for Jenny was the quintessential idealistic love that a man has for a woman. A pure love, a true love, that what Forrest had for Jenny. And she could have done anything to him and he still would have loved her, because that's how pure that love was. Now, that is a naive love. Right? That is not a educated love. That is an idealistic Disney type love that really, a lot of us had, who are now red pill. We used to have that kind of love until we got abused and cheated on and used and friend zoned and laughed at for so long that we finally just someday said, hey, you know what? I'm taking the red pill. This is bullshit. And we stumbled across MGTOW, we stumbled across red pill channels, and we said, this is it. This is the truth. And we woke up and we walked out of the matrix. But Forrest, probably being that he was mentally challenged, totally didn't think or take into account, even though he probably did, but he just overlooked it because his love was so pure, probably didn't take into account all of her bullshit. And he loved her so purely that he just overlooked all of that. Overlooked the fact that she was a drug addict, overlooked the fact that she was probably, her body count, her lay count was probably in the hundreds or 200s, you know, amount of guys that she's had sex with. She was a stripper at one point. She was a right? She just was getting around the whole country even. Like, she was everywhere, right? And the dichotomy there is very interesting. And like I said, if you look at this movie from the perspective and the scope of it being a story about both of them, and a love story, but really a story about both Jenny and Forest, it's interesting to note, man, because it's a good representative of how women went the wrong way, of how women veered off into all this other bullshit in the 20th century. She was a typical Rolling Stone. She was a typical young woman. I mean, okay, maybe not typical, because eventually women settled down, maybe in her 20s, but okay. You know, I got to put some nuance in there, and I got to say, well, not all women, like, it's true, not all women, but it doesn't mean that, you know, at least her path, right? Maybe her path wasn't like all women's path, because a lot of women, they say, you know what, I want security. I want to settle down around 25, 28, you know, between 25 and 28. And they're not going to take that route that Jenny took, which is this way long arc of being, you know, this messed up girl who's, you know, but they're going to do some variation of that. Probably not in the magnitude of what she did it and the long time period that she did it, but they're going to do some variation of that, right? Even if they come from great households, right? It's just going to be not as severe and not as crazy as hers. Okay, the most abused girls are going to, but you see my point? It's the female nature that's being pumped up and highlighted and you know, sort of pushed beyond what it would have been if she had a normal family. It's going to take that form, just not in that severity. It's going to take that form, just not in that huge arc that she did, right? So female nature is female nature. They're still going to chase bad boys for a while until they want that security. But instead of wanting security at 25 to 28, Jenny probably, you know, wanted security after she had the kid, and probably when she was like 35. That's when she was like, okay, time to settle down. And she didn't have any other options, because like that's her life, and she didn't have any other options besides Forest. And maybe in her heart of hearts, she just got this feeling sorry she was going to die, so she finally gave him some pussy, right? And of course, you can watch the Family Guy version of it, where it totally bashes her for being the drug-addled slut that she was, right? But, you know, again, you could argue and say, well, she did all that because she was abused and blah, blah, blah. And so you could definitely make a case for feeling sorry for Jenny. And you can make a case for feeling sorry for any of these girls. I don't care how adjusted they are, how beautiful they are, how, you know, healthy they are in their body and blah, blah, blah. If they're doing porn, or they're doing OnlyFans, or if they're sleeping around, you can definitely make a case for feeling sorry for those girls. Like, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. Hey, you know, like, it depends on, of course, guys who've been burned by them. The red pill guys or guys just who've been really burned by them are going to say, no, I'm not going to feel sorry for her. It's her own choice, and she needs to take accountability. And I think both sides are right. I think you can, on the one hand, feel sorry for a girl like that. On the other hand, yes, she should take responsibility. On the other hand, yes, she should do better and not blame shit and have agency and not blame men. And it's men's fault, like, you know, like Brie Olson and Mia Khalifa. It's men's fault I'm a whore, and I don't want to be viewed as a whore now that I'm, or, you know, a retired whore. I don't want to be viewed like that, and blah, 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 all this bullshit, right? Like, so anyway, she comes back to Forest because alpha fucks beta bucks. She chased alpha, she chased her fun, she had all that shit, and maybe it was excessive because she was abused, and maybe it was too much, and maybe she actually hurt herself. That's why she got cancer. Rolling Stone for 20 years, from the time you're 18 to 35 or whatever, you know, almost 20 years, right? Out doing heroin, out doing drugs. Like, yeah, you could get cancer, or you could get AIDS. The movie never really says, right? But it's probably cancer, because, you know, we get the impression that Forest, you know, lived on, his son lived on, and if she had AIDS, that probably wouldn't have happened. And anyway, or, you know, who knows? I don't know. Are Magic Johnson's family, are they HIV infected? I don't know. But that's what the movie sort of implies, is that she had cancer. It doesn't really say. Of course, you know, again, you can watch Family Guy and they rip into it and imply that she has AIDS and all this. You know, the Family Guy version is pretty funny, but at the same time, like, you know, we don't know. We really don't know. But she rejects him at first, and at first, I mean, for like 20 years, she rejects the guy because he wanted her always, and she rejected him and chased the bad boys, right? But because she comes around to him at the end and uses him for his money, security, resources, and docile life to raise her kid, this shows how women want it all. That's exactly what happened, right? She went and did all that crazy shit, right? And then she comes around because he's a millionaire. So it means he's a good provider. He has resources. So she overlooked the fact that she was never attracted to him. She overlooked the fact that he's mentally challenged. And because finally, you know, she was going to die, she decides to have a kid with him. Or actually, that's really not how the movie happened. Actually, what happened is she came back and then she slept with him. And because she slept with him once, I think she gave him some pity sex. You know, the movie shows. And from that pity sex, she got pregnant. Which is, I mean, this poor guy Forrest, like, women are out here, and it was just sort of a representation of how, you know, the difference between men and women dating. Like, the nice guys, we don't get play. Like, I had to learn how to be a bad boy. I had to learn how to, you know, develop these characteristics of not giving a fuck, of being high value and all these things, so a woman would have sex with me. I had to develop that. When I was Forrest Gump, when I was a nice guy back, you know, before, you know, when I was a teenager, when I wanted to love a girl, like, I couldn't get nothing. I had to become the bad boy, you know, to get sex. She finally gave him some pity sex, and she only slept with him once. And you know, and again, this is what men have to go through. We don't get laid all the time. She's probably had hundreds of partners. Women take sex for granted, and they actually look down on men because we can't get sex like they can get sex. They think it's like, oh, you just don't have enough value or whatever. Like, no, it's just that there's a big difference in the way women choose men and the way men choose women. Men have to jump through all these hoops. Men have to, like, pretend that we're bad boys. We have to, like, show that we don't give a fuck. We have to develop all these skills and develop all these traits and all these things that we might not naturally have, so that we can portray ourselves to be, ooh, this guy's an alpha. Ooh, he's a rogue. He's a bad boy. I want to fuck him. Ooh. We have to do all that shit, whereas women just exist. Women just, you know, are alive, and women just, you know, have, that's just what it is. They have value. They have value, you know, for being alive. They have sexual value. They have sexual market value, just because men are visual. And so anyway, like, you get my point. Forrest has to do all this shit. Well, actually, Forrest didn't really have to do nothing. Well, but he got rich. He had to do all this. He had to run and go to Vietnam, be a war hero, play ping pong. And even all that wasn't enough. Be a championship sports player at ping pong. Even all that wasn't enough. He was a national hero for running and all this crazy shit. And none of that was even enough. She finally gave him some pity sex. Probably because she just felt sorry. She just felt, oh, well, he's always loved me. That's kind of what the movie implies. He's always loved me. And I've just been, you know, living this wanton life. And then she doesn't even stay with him. She leaves the next day after they have pity sex. And she goes to Oregon or some fucking place. And she's gone. And finally she gets pregnant, and she's like, and she has the kid, and she still doesn't come back. She still doesn't come back. She raises the kid till he's like 5 on her own. The only time when she comes back is when she has cancer and she's got to dump the kid off on him. I mean, that's how much of a piece of shit Jenny is. But this is female nature, right? Solipsistic, selfish, right? Chasing the wrong things, not having any morals, right? And again, you could argue and say, oh, it was because she was abused. Yeah, but not all these girls are abused. Not all these girls come from bad households. People think that, but no, that's been disproven. Like, people think, oh, all the girls who do porn, they're just like, no, man. These girls have OnlyFans. These girls are on Pornhub. These girls, no, it's just female nature. That's the thing about the red pill. When you take the red pill, all these truths really come to light. All these truths, you start to see this different scope. You start to see through a different magnifying glass. You put on these glasses, and all of a sudden, you're seeing things differently. You see the Matrix for what it really is, right? This is what happened with Neo in the Matrix. He got a change of scope. He got a change of viewpoint, and all of a sudden, he's seeing things for what they really are. So this is what happens when we take the red pill. But anyway, I just wanted to finish there. I wanted to make this short video synopsis breakdown of Forrest and Ginny and the difference between those two. And it's an interesting thing to look at. It's an interesting thing to know. And like I said, I don't know if the directors or the writers meant to do it like that. I don't know if they meant to, really show female nature that way. And it's also interesting to note that female nature is all about pleasure. Female nature is all about serving themselves, which is solipsism, right? Whereas, male nature wants to find a purpose. Forrest Gump's whole, all his adventures were all about finding a purpose. Well, maybe I should go to war. Maybe I should play sports. Maybe I should start a business. Maybe I should, go on this long run so that I could figure it all out. Like, this is the sort of lifespan of, a male. We're trying to find purpose. We're trying to find worth. We're trying to find, fulfillment in things that have to do with success, and fulfillment in things that have to do with preservation in a way, or like self purpose. Whereas women, they're out here finding, I'm not saying men don't do this, but women are out here finding pleasure in sexual immorality, drugs, and self-glorification. And if you look at Instagram, all these women, what are they doing? They're idolizing themselves, right? These Instagram thoughts. All right, what's porn? It's just idolizing women. Why do women do porn? Yes, the money, yes, the fame, but it's also about idolizing. It's also, they want men to idolize them. They want to feel worthwhile through a man's worship of her. And what do they use that? What do they do that through? Sex. This is why women don't give sex up so easily, because sex is worth something. Sex can propel them to a sort of goddess-like status, a diva. She's a diva. How does she become a diva? Look at Beyonce. Look at Mariah Carey. Look at Britney Spears. Look at Taylor Swift. Well, how do they become divas? How do they become these music goddesses? Through sex. They're selling sex. They're sexualizing themselves, right? This is idol worship, right? So this is a example of, the modern woman, and the difference between the modern, the difference between men and women, and our purposes and things like that. Very interesting to note. Very interesting movie breakdown. Very interesting from a red pill perspective. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. It's been Jay Lee, Northwest Podcast. Peace.